Hello, and this is another video review, and this time I'm going to be reviewing the PC version of Mirror's Edge. So let's get to it. Mirror's Edge is first and foremost a platformer. Yes, there are action elements, yes, you can shoot a gun, but for the most part this is all about jumping across stuff and hoping you don't miss your mark and die. But as you can probably tell already, and you've probably known this way before the game was actually released, is that Mirror's Edge plays exclusively in the first-person perspective. And that really isn't the ideal viewpoint to do any kind of jumping, except for maybe bunny hopping in all those shooters. And I can only think of a few games that have really done first-person platforming well. Metroid Prime, Metroid Prime 2 Echoes, Metroid Prime 3 Corruption, and Half-Life 2 and its episodes did a pretty good job too. So Mirror's Edge pretty much lives or dies by how intuitive its platforming is, and for the most part, I think DICE did a really great job of this. To use this perspective in this genre also has its own pros too, and DICE really realizes and fully utilizes that potential. There are some issues that could have been ironed out, but for the most part what we get here right now, I think it's a lot of fun and it's definitely worth playing. But I'm gonna quickly talk about the story first, which is just a pile of squandered potential. Mirror's Edge takes place in a totalitarian government where information is heavily controlled, and the only way to transport and send illegal and sensitive information is to hire runners, and you play as Faith, a runner. There's always a lot of opportunities of a setting like this, but for the most part, it really isn't that interesting. The story is initially set around a murder that Faith's sister, Kate, didn't commit. She's framed for it anyway, and the story does jump into something bigger and grander, and it does end on a cliffhanger that doesn't tie up any loose ends. What's even worse is how the story is presented. I think it looks like DICE used Flash for a lot of its cutscenes, and personally I think Flash has a lot of limitations, and it's really something that might have been used for cost efficiency and time efficiency, and if this was an artistic choice, I think this was a mistake. I mean, the art is there, but the animation is really robotic and it just doesn't work. The in-game cutscenes on the other hand are a lot better though. Flat characters, decent writing, and this really isn't a very good start for what is supposed to be the first in the trilogy for Mirror's Edge. So the only driving force here is the gameplay, which is of course the most important part of the game. And Mirror's Edge is definitely unique in maybe the most general and simplistic and maybe offensive way to maybe describe this is Prince of Persia, except it's less automated, requires more timing, and it's all in the first person. But that's how I'm going to describe it anyway. And that perspective is really what makes Mirror's Edge work. I never really felt these physical actions like I have since maybe Condemned 1 and 2 or Escape from Butcher Bay. I really felt every jump, I felt every tumble and roll, I felt every slide, and I felt like I was Faith. And that's really the greatest pro that this perspective brings. And on the other hand, there are a lot of cons of it too, and unfortunately DICE doesn't really do much to alleviate those issues. The glaring and most obvious problem is the lack of real situational awareness. You know, in those third-person platformers like Super Mario Galaxy or Prince of Persia, you have a camera that you can use to look around and get a bearing of your surroundings, and Mirror's Edge doesn't have this. And this results in moments of where I had to just take blind jumps because I didn't know where I was really getting to when I had to run off a wall and jump off a ledge to somewhere else because I simply couldn't see it. So I just had to guess the timing of it, and if I fail, I fail, and if I make it, I make it. So there was some trial and error. The PC controls are more than adequate. The mouse really offers a lot of fast turning and able to really look around really quickly. But this really is a problem with the actual design and the actual restrictions of this perspective. Now, these moments don't happen frequently enough that they really bog down the game, but when they do happen, yeah, they're pretty frustrating. The level design is questionable too, because for every open-ended area, you have an interior space or some construction site. These areas are dramatically different in just terms of pacing. They're a lot more methodical and you have to look around to see where you need to platform onto, And face runner vision helps a lot because things will glow in red, so you can find out where you need to jump onto where you need to get to. And this seems to spit in the face of what Mirror's Edge tries to do a lot of the time, which is to provide a flowing experience when you jump from platform to platform over rooftops in one seamless flow instead of stopping and then looking for where you need to go again and then jumping there again and repeating the process until you get out of this interior space. It's not that these areas aren't fun, it is kind of refreshing, but for the most part, the open areas when you're on rooftops, those are a lot better. The combat on the other hand is no good. You have really basic hand-to-hand combat, which is pretty much useless when you're outnumbered, and the gunplay just feels really unsatisfying once you actually start firing your weapon. Probably the best part about combat is the disarming technique, and it's really simple. All you need to do is go up to somebody, and once they try to melee you, you just right click when their gun glows red, and then Faith will do a really nice disarming technique and you'll have whatever gun he has. It's simple but really satisfying. But on the whole, combat is just a bad mixture of awful AI and just really unsatisfying feel from the guns. And that's really weird considering DICE has been making Battlefield games for half a decade really. And while the combat is there and it really sucks, you can skip most of it, you can run past a lot of it, and there's really not enough combat in the game to really truly become a huge griping point. You can probably tell by now, but Mirror's Edge looks great. It's really minimalistic. There really is only 2 or 3 colors going on at any given time, and it really gives off a very sterile feel, kind of like Portal. And I found Portal to be a really good looking game, and same, ditto for Mirror's Edge. The game's use of lighting can be really excessive to the point that it's literally blinding, but really just a great looking game, and just like its gameplay, its visuals are almost as equally unique. And the PC version has physics, and that's with an X at the end, so that implies you're gonna get some extreme physics. And yeah, they're pretty extreme. Glass shards will remain in the game world after you shoot down windows. Smoke will react to how you run past it and if you punch it or whatever. And paper and flags and banners will tear and tatter when you shoot it. Just be sure to have a rig that can sustain a good frame rate while having this on, because this is pretty system intensive. And my game tended to seize up after when I shot a lot of flags at once. And there are a lot of stuff that'll help, like the new 1.01 patch and the latest physics drivers will really improve performance and just stability in general, and it did for me. Even though it adds nothing to the gameplay, it's just aesthetically pleasing to look at. And I got distracted a lot by wasting all my ammo on the flags and just glass, just watching them break and just react to my bullets. So distraction might be the biggest thing that physics brings, besides the fact that it looks really cool. In the game's audio, I thought it was pretty much perfect. The sound of the wind as you run really fast, the rustling of her clothes, and all the noises she makes when... Okay, that came out wrong, but I think you get my point. The voice acting is pretty good, but the real draw is the game's soundtrack, which I thought was awesome. If you like this really heavy ambient stuff, like Aphex Twin or maybe even Amon Tobin, then you're really gonna like the soundtrack. Mirror's Edge is short, like 5 hours short. I just spread this out throughout a couple days because I was playing some other games while I was playing this, and even then it just felt really awfully short. The good thing is that there's a lot of stuff you can do outside of the story mode, like the time trials, where you can choose a level and see how quickly you can finish it, and then you can upload your ghost and you can see how many people are better than you, and then you can hopefully try to get better than them. And you can unlock concept art, which looks really nice, and there's some DLC planned at the end of the month for Mirror's Edge, so there's some lights. So Mirror's Edge is a great game and it's definitely worth playing. It's just punctuated by moments that kind of blow, but overall this is a really great product and it's one of a kind, and the feeling you get of this first person platforming has to really be played to be believed. So until next time, see ya.
Goddamn machine gun. Did you just do what I think you did? God damn it, girl, I just spilled my Joe all over the keyboard.